Well, here I am, back in my dungeon of a basement. I decided for next winter I want to try and set up a little bit better of a shop down here, clean it up some. Because it's kind of nice just walking down in the basement where it's warm to work on something. Anyway, and there's so many things, there's sub-assemblies that you can bring inside and parts to work on. So I'm going to get back at cutting seats, or grinding seats. Only I'm going to start with cylinder head number 1 and work my way to number 4 instead of like I did with the reverse with putting the cylinders on. First I have to adjust it so the stone will go down to the seat. There, now the stone is off the seat, just barely. Now it is touching all the way around, except for right here, it isn't quite all the way out to the edge yet. So I'm going to keep going till it gets all the way out to the edge, and maybe some of those pits will disappear or get a little bit smaller too. I'm happy with how that one looks. Now I'll go to the other one, which this was the intake one I did. Next will be the exhaust side. Always have to check it all the way around to make sure it isn't touching on one side real hard before I start. I have to keep going because it's just only touching about halfway up on this side. Now it looks good. Now I'm gonna put a little lapping compound on the valves and check the contact. Now we'll see what kind of contact we're making. You can see we're making contact all the way around by the dull finish from lapping compound. I know there's some pits in the valve, but I feel it's going to be making good enough contact at all points to seal up good. Like I keep repeating, this is not a rebuild. This is doing what has to be done with what you have to make it run. So I'm going to call that one good. Now on to the exhaust valve. Lapping compound. take a look at that one. Real good contact all the way around. I mean, this is one of the nicer valves. Real good contact. Being an exhaust valve, it ain't too sharp on the edge. When it gets sharp on the edge, that's a spot where it can get hot, cause detonation. I don't know if it would happen in such a low compression and slow RPM engine, but you never know. So I'm going to call that one good. Now we'll tip the head back and look at the seats. Let's see how the seats look. Nice dull finish all the way around. So I'm happy with those. So I'm going to call that good. So this head needs to have some threads chased, some cleaning up, and then I can install the valves in it. But now I notice too, this head apparently also lost a head of a valve at one time. There's some dings in it. Quite a few. Not as much as that other head. But this valve head must have came off inside of this combustion chamber too at one time in its life. Like I said, I would like to have bought all new valves, you know, pressed in new guide liners, and maybe even cut in some new seats. It actually has pressed in seats, at least this head. I think they all do. I don't know if they were cut in afterwards or if they came from the factory that way, but you can see there are seats pressed in. But I don't have it in my budget, financially or time-wise. I want to have that thing running this summer, and I won't run it very hard at all. I'll go on to cylinder head number 2 after I chase the threads on it. I have the bolt holes that hold the rocker arms down. I have those threads to chase. They aren't blind holes, they go through. Now I'm going to try a rocker arm on it just to make sure they go in how they should. That's good. Every step is a step closer. The spring is pushing sideways on that tower. So that's why it's kind of hard to spin it in with my fingers. And I have to chase the threads where the manifold bolt goes in that holds the manifolds on. That's not a blind hole either. That goes into the hole where the head stud goes through the head. There's one more thing I have to do before this head gets its final cleaning. I've checked the threads on the studs for the water manifold, but I have to get a wire brush to run through the head bolt holes. I kind of forgot about those too, to make sure when I'm sliding it down over the head studs that grit doesn't come out of them. So I know I don't have a bottle type brush for that. I'm going to have to wait till I get to town to get one to finish cleaning this up. So I'll move on to cylinder head number 2 until then. Well, I think I'm going to finish this video up with something a little different. If any of you who have been following my channel, last summer I bought an early D4 with a home-built scraper from the Spearfish, South Dakota area. And this is the operator instructions manual I got with it. And one evening I was looking through the book. You can see it was owned by a Bud Sorensen. And I was looking through it one evening, and when I got to the last page, I found some notes. As you can see, in March '63, installed new sleeves, rings, and knurled old pistons. So that shows you that back then, people didn't necessarily buy everything new. They knurled the pistons, which I actually had it done to a set of pistons 35 or 40 years ago, but now you just buy new. And also you see starting engine repaired, new oil seals and main bearings. But here's what I think is the interesting part. Shims put under rod inserts and pistons and rings okay. So he took it apart, went through trouble and put in new main bearings and oil seals, but didn't spring for new rod bearings or pistons or rings. Even as much as I don't care to spend money, I think I would have bought new rod bearings and new rings. But it just goes to show you that people would do whatever it did to keep something in service, kind of like I'm doing with the 60 right now, just doing what is necessary with what I have. So I just thought I'd show you this. It's kind of interesting. And this will be a candidate. When I get the 60 running, I'd like to bring this D4 home and pull the head off the main engine. Maybe it isn't stuck too bad, so I could get it running. But it would definitely be a candidate for pulling the pony motor and taking it apart and doing it properly before it flies apart. So thanks again for watching. I hope that found this a little bit interesting. And we'll catch you when I get at cylinder head number 2.